welcome to this week's LOLC Securities Weekly Market Roundup. I am Megara Vijayamana.
And I am Tharindu Amarasekara. This is the sound of profitability. The IMF announced that Sri Lanka is expected to receive swift access to the sixth tranche of the extended fund facility, which is worth $350 million over the next 2 weeks.
The announcement came during a high-level donor consultation hosted by the Ministry of Finance, bringing together diplomatic representatives, bilateral and multilateral development partners, and key international lenders. The forum aimed to assess the impact of Cyclone Ditwa and coordinate ongoing relief, recovery and reconstruction efforts. Several donor nations and multilateral agencies committed immediate humanitarian assistance, including emergency services, food and drinking water, hygiene kits, medical supplies and rapid response health interventions to prevent disease outbreaks. Some countries have already deployed relief teams on the ground.
According to official data, the revenue collected by Sri Lanka Customs jumped by over 16.7% in November compared to the monthly target.
Government data showed that the total revenue by end November has already reached around 107% of the full year target. Sri Lanka Customs has set a revenue target of 2,115 billion rupees for this year, which is 36.2% higher than last year's 1,553 million rupees. According to official customs data, the monthly target for November this year was 210 billion rupees, but the government has achieved 245 billion rupees in the month through November 30th. The customs has achieved 2,260 billion rupees in revenue during the first 11 months of this year, compared to 1,367 billion rupees in the same period last year. It was also showing a 65.3% growth in the collection.
Sri Lanka's tourism arrivals rose by 16.5% in November 2025 to 202,906, with India and Russia being the top source markets.
Total arrivals were 2,103,593 up to November, up 16.5% from a year ago. November arrivals were also higher than the 195,582 in 2018. Indian tourists made up 24% of arrivals in November with 51,391, while 24,953 came from the Russian Federation. UK tourists were 16,915, German tourists were 14,518, and arrivals from Australia were 9,384, followed by 9,217 Chinese tourists. Arrivals from France were 8,459, Poland 5,331, United States 5,284, and Spain 4,666.
And now it's time for the corporate highlights. John Q's Holdings reported a rise in revenue by 88% to 144.8 billion rupees in Q2. The company's EBITDA more than doubled to 18.4 billion rupees, while the company's profit before tax was up by 243% and the profit after tax was up by 176%.
The group's broader confidence in its strategy and cash generation ability was also reflected in the doubling of its first interim dividend to 0.10 rupees per share, that is a 1.8 billion rupee payout. Performance was broadly in line with expectations, but particularly strong where structural tailwinds exist. Retail remained a standout, led by BYD, even though the custom dispute and broader policy headwinds around EV imports remain near-term challenges. Further, Nations Trust Bank delivered another strong quarter supporting financial services. Operating cash flow over the last 12 months is around 41.3 billion rupees, with 2.9 billion rupees generated this quarter alone, supporting commitments as the group moves from investment to harvest mode. ROCE has improved to roughly 3.5% on last 12 months, which is still below pre-crisis levels but clearly is trending up.
Wealth Trust Securities, a licensed primary dealer, is raising 500 million rupees, selling 71.54 million shares at 7 rupees per share.
WTS had a core capital of 6.25 billion rupees by September 30th, which is above the central bank requirement of 2.5 billion rupees. By January 2026, capital has to be increased to 4 billion rupees and 5 billion by January 2027. Since starting in 2010 with an initial capital of 330 million, the company has so far paid out dividends close to 6 billion rupees while building capital and remaining profitable with careful risk management and research, according to Chief Executive Romesh Gomes.
Sri Lanka's Hatton National Bank is planning a debenture sale to raise 10 billion rupees.
Initially, 50 million listed rated unsecured redeemable senior sustainable bonds for tenors of 5 years and 7 years will be offered at 100 rupees each. Thereafter, another 50 million will be offered in the event of an oversubscription of the initial issue. The Colombo Stock Exchange has approved in principle an application for listing the debt securities.
And now it's time for the Leader's Voice segment with Suren Chandraratna, the Vice Chairman of COYLE, the Chamber of Lankan Entrepreneurs.
I'm Suren Chandraratna, Senior Vice Chairman of COYLE. Sri Lanka's economic growth is projected to stabilize at its long-term trend around 3.1% to 3.5%, following the strong post-crisis recovery in 2024 and 2025. This outlook is largely contingent on the government's continued implementation of the IMF-supported reform program and successful completion of debt restructuring. As entrepreneurs, we have to be positive about the prospects and given the recovery we have had over the last few years. Despite the recent natural disasters, there is a reason to believe that the domestic spending will grow by the consumers and by the business as well in 2026.
Here is Tharindu with the ESG update.
Sri Lankan energy firm WindForce has announced that its fully owned subsidiary, Dear Janani Private Limited, has entered into a standard power purchase agreement with the Ceylon Electricity Board to build a floating solar power project on the Dambuloya Reservoir.
The project is estimated to cost 1,176 million rupees. This project represents one of the first and largest floating solar developments in the private sector in Sri Lanka, the company said in a stock exchange filing. WindForce said its capital structure for the project is 80-20 debt to equity from the project cost. There will be a total capacity of 6.5 megawatts to 5 megawatts in the direct and alternate current versions.
Time for the international update with Megara.
AFC Asia Frontier Co-Fund Manager Ruchir Desai delivered an upbeat assessment of Sri Lanka's capital market outlook, noting that the country is entering one of the most promising phases in the last decade with political stability, macroeconomic recovery and undervalued equities.
Speaking at the Sri Lanka Economic Summit organized by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Desai said he has tracked Sri Lanka's market since 2014 alongside other frontier and emerging markets such as Bangladesh, Pakistan, Vietnam, Kazakhstan and Georgia. He noted that while Sri Lanka went through a prolonged period of turbulence between 2018 and 2023, the country now stands out for having regained both political and economic stability, conditions he described as the most critical prerequisites for sustained investor interest. Desai further stated he increased the fund's allocation to Sri Lanka soon after visiting the country in November 2022 at what he noted as the bottom of the crisis.
And that's it for this week's LOLC Securities Weekly Market Roundup. No matter what investment decision you make it with the right intent. We will see you in a brand new week.